Yeah, I'm Captain Jim O'Neill from Key Biscayne, Florida. The reason I came to Florida is when I was in the Navy, we were headed for Cuba, Guantanamo, on a destroyer, and I saw the lights back in the early 50s. As soon as I got out of the Navy, I rode my motorcycle down, got a job on Key Biscayne on the fishing boats. And not knowing at the time that I would be a pioneer of Key Biscayne because it was so young. The fishing boats there relied mostly on tourists. And we had one hotel and a few motels on the Key and people from town, but there was not much business in Miami. And when the season was over and wintertime was over, it was tough fishing or getting clients to fish. But times changed. Man, did this town, Miami, build up over the years. And I finally got to build my own boat. I got financing from a person that lived in Miami and believed in us. And we built the Queen Bee, 48-foot real plush charter boat in its day. And I fished so many people that were of importance that I got such a kick out of how I ever ended up meeting all these people from a little kid up in New Jersey. And I've met Nixon, the Kennedys, Rebozo, Joe Robbie, Mayor Daley, and even the mayor now, his son went out on me with me. But it was a great place, and it was a great life for me and my children. 3 children grew up on the Key, and they ended up all into the same boating business as captains, and also a yacht broker, my daughter. She taught sea school for captains. And I couldn't think of a better place to have landed when I was a young man of 21 getting out of the Navy. And my life has been so great down here and met so many nice people, and it's still nice. And the water is beautiful. Biscayne Bay is as good as it ever been. I think they cleaned it up even more. The fishing is excellent. We release most of the fish now, although we released them back then, but we still release almost everyone now except for a few eating fish and get our limit. We'll try and get our limit for the people. But my son's taken over my charter business with the Top Hat, and my other son we ran the Rum Bum, fished all the tournaments all around, as far as Bermuda and St. Thomas and Cabo San Lucas and Guatemala and Costa Rica. They're great captains, and it's such a pleasure to look back and see how the grandchildren are coming now, and they're all, loving the water sports. Not so much the fishing, but they love everything else. But they do some fishing. As time went on, before I built my boat, I did slip down to Pier 5, which was the famous fishing pier in Miami, known all over the world, with some of the top fishermen. Most of the fishermen that were on Pier 5 had created almost all the new inventions of fishing, like the outriggers and the fighting chair, Tommy Gifford, and all those names, and Bob Lewis and Buddy Carey. And I envied all those old-timers, and it's funny that I'm an old-timer now, but I looked up to them, and they showed me a lot of fishing, and I try to show the young people today. But Pier 5 they had the best fish market in town. They had people coming all the people for work downtown would come across that park and see what the catch was for the day and see the boats unload. And it had a little restaurant there. People would buy a beer and walk down, and next thing you know, they'd buy a little piece of smoked fish that we sold for $0.25, and that was their treat for the after work, being in an office all day. But business really grew and grew and grew, so fishing took off, and we've done a lot of, big companies coming in, and taking all the boats they could get and chartering them all and entertain. And I really saw the best of this, and I hope there's a lot more to come for my gang. Most people that came down wanted to catch sailfish, and sailfish was the big thing for people wanting, but we caught, nice dolphin, real nice size ones, schoolies. The kingfish would be laying out there in a big hole, and all the boats would be going round and round. Not so much anymore. They move around more, but you could see the kingfish fleet out there, one south and one north, and the Gulf Stream right on the edge, right by the buoy, the sea buoy, and all the way down to Fowey Light. Guys would just line up in the in the boats and work the edge down, and one guy'd slow down and catch a few fish, and you'd slide by him, and then you'd be the first one, and then he'd slide by you again. But we go offshore also, but there are a few marlin, big blue marlin. I've caught at least one a year, a lot of white marlin in April, May. And we had the Greater Miami fishing tournament for the Miami Herald that was going for years and years, and it still is. And all the writers for the Herald, they were really great writers, and they kept the interest up of all the people moving in. And I think fishing was one of the number one things. And as business picked up, we all kept busy. I was running the boat one day with the president of Rolf Armour Truck Service, who was the only truck service around. And we had Eddie Rickenbacker out from Eastern Airlines. The head of Eastern Airlines started it. He lived on a raft for 70-some days, and people died on the raft out in the Pacific. He was an ace in World War I. So it was very, interesting to meet him and be with him and have him fishing. Well, I had a friend as a mate go along that day. We hooked the bottom looking for grouper. But Eddie thought he had a grouper on. So he was fighting that bottom, and the waves were lifting up and down like the fish was pulling. And he was talking about this big grouper he was going to get and everything. And I told the owner of Rolf Armour Truck, I said, it's the bottom. And he said, let him fight it. He's having fun. So he gives me the sign to go ahead and break it off. And I tell my friend, the mate, to go ahead and break it off. And he says, I'm not going to lose Eddie's fish. So we couldn't break it off. We had to wait till it actually broke off by itself, and he lost the grouper.